Welcome to today's episode of Slow Down to Hear Your Heart. In a world that never seems to stop, it's easy to lose touch with yourself. Today, take a deep breath, slow down, and give yourself a few quiet moments. This is your time to reflect, to let go of the noise, and to reconnect with the voice within. So get comfortable, relax, and let's begin this journey together.
I'd bet that you probably checked your phone within like 3 minutes of waking up today.
Oh, easily. I
Yeah.
mean, statistically, it's about 80% of adults who do exactly that.
Right. Yeah. You open your eyes, you grab the device from the nightstand, and you just instantly flood your brain with emails and headlines and texts.
And all those notifications.
Exactly. And what feels like this totally harmless morning habit is actually this profound neurological event. Because in that split second before you've even stretched or, had a glass of water, you have entirely surrendered your autonomy for the rest of the day.
You really have. You've basically traded your own internal rhythm for a set of external demands.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are taking a microscope to that exact feeling, that sort of modern ambient exhaustion that we all carry around.
Yeah, that heavy feeling.
Right. And our source material today is this amazing text from Van Bunduktan titled Slow Down to Hear Your Heart. It's incredibly brief, honestly. It's practically a poem.
It is very poetic, yeah.
But if you look closely at the architecture of these few lines, it is not just some motivational poster. It's not, something you just double tap on social media and scroll past.
No, not at all. I mean, it functions as a complete diagnostic manual for modern burnout.
A diagnostic manual. I like that.
Yeah, because the author systematically breaks down the etiology of our collective exhaustion, right? They map out the environmental pathogens, so the noise and the mimicking behaviors. Then they isolate the internal symptoms. And finally, they prescribe this highly specific, biologically grounded treatment plan, which culminates in a total reframing of what it actually means to rest.
So for everyone listening right now, whether you're commuting or pacing around your kitchen or staring at a spreadsheet, our mission today is to pull you off the treadmill for a little bit.
Just hit the pause button.
Exactly. We're going to unpack the physiological and really the philosophical mechanics hidden in this text. We're going to audit why we feel so incredibly drained and how this concept of slowing down is much more than just some wellness buzzword.
Right, it's a biological imperative.
So to start, the text begins by diagnosing the actual environment we're operating in. The author writes, sometimes life gets so loud that we forget to listen to ourselves.
And we really need to redefine loudness in this context because the immediate association we have is acoustic noise, right? Traffic, construction, a crowded room.
Sure, like physical volume.
Yeah. But the author is describing a cognitive and digital loudness here. So in signal processing, there's this concept called the signal-to-noise ratio.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the signal is the meaningful information that you actually want to receive. And the noise is all the background interference.
Ah, I see.
So in our modern environment, the sheer volume of data, the expectations, all those micro demands, they act as this overwhelming interference. It just completely drowns out the internal telemetry, our own physiological and emotional feedback.
Yeah. And the next line of the text provides the exact anatomy of that noise. The author says, we wake up, check our phones, chase deadlines, answer messages, and try to keep up with everyone else.
That sequencing of verbs is it's meticulous.
Take up, check, chase, answer, keep up.
Exactly. Notice how there is a complete absence of initiation in that entire list.
Oh, wait, you're right.
Yeah, from the absolute microsecond that consciousness returns, waking up the individual immediately transitions into a purely reactive state.
Right, because when you check, you're just looking to see what the world requires of you today.
Yes. And when you chase a deadline, you're already in a deficit. You're running after a target that was set by someone else entirely.
And answering is just, responding to someone else's prompt. It's like a life lived entirely on the defensive.
Completely on the defense.
You never actually have the ball. You're just constantly trying to block shots. And consider what that does to a person's nervous system day after day. Like you listening right now, think about your posture the moment you open your inbox.
Oh, it's terrible.
Your shoulders tense up, your breathing gets shallower. You are literally bracing for impact.
And the biological term for that is sympathetic nervous system activation. It's our fight or flight response.
Right.
So when we are trapped in that endless sequence of checking and chasing and answering, our brains cannot distinguish between a looming work deadline and a physical predator in the wild.
So we're just marinating in cortisol.
We are marinating in cortisol and adrenaline all day long. And that final verb phrase in the sequence really reveals the ultimate predator that we're running from.
The trying to keep up with everyone else part.
Exactly.
So we aren't just running toward a goal, we are running to maintain our position in the herd.
That phrase unlocks a massive sociological concept, actually. The philosopher and anthropologist René Girard, he basically dedicated his life to a concept called mimetic desire.
Mimetic desire, right?
Yeah, so Girard argued that human beings don't actually know what they want, like
Yeah.
intrinsically.
Wait, really? We don't know what we want?
Not inherently, no. We aren't born with this innate desire for a specific job title or a specific type of house or a certain lifestyle. Instead, our desires are mimetic, meaning we subconsciously mimic the desires of the people around us.
Ah, okay, so we look at the people we perceive as, I don't know, successful or safe, and we see what they're chasing, and we just sort of adopt those targets as our own.
Precisely. And evolutionarily, this makes total sense.
How so?
Well, if you're a primitive human, right, and you see the rest of your tribe suddenly start sprinting in one direction, the safest evolutionary bet is to just start running with them.
Even if you don't see the lion.
Exactly. If you stop to analyze the situation and say, hey guys, why are we running? You get eaten. So mimesis is a survival mechanism.
But let me push back on that for a second, because, I mean, let's be real, isn't keeping up just a necessary survival mechanism in the modern world too? Like, if we start checking our phones or chasing deadlines, don't we just get left behind?
Well, yes and no. In the primitive world, the tribe was small and the threats were immediate. But in the modern world, algorithms and social media have totally weaponized this instinct.
Oh, man.
We are exposed to the curated desires and the achievements of thousands of people every single day.
So the tribe is suddenly millions of people large, and they're all running in different, completely exhausting directions.
Right. And keeping up with everyone else means your pace is being dictated by this localized panic.
Yeah.
You are burning massive amounts of energy trying to achieve things you might not even actually care about.
Just because the terror of being left behind is like too evolutionarily potent to ignore.
Exactly. And that mimetic trap creates this profound sense of alienation. Because the treadmill is moving at an absolute sprint, but you aren't the one who set the speed.
You didn't even pick the machine.
Right. And when our entire cognitive bandwidth is consumed by just trying to match the pace of the external crowd, our internal processing centers they shut down entirely.
Which brings us perfectly to the internal conflict the author highlights next. Because while we're sprinting on this mimetic treadmill, something else is happening beneath the surface.
Yes, the quiet voice.
Exactly. The text reads, "But deep inside, there's a quiet voice asking, are you really happy? Is this truly what you want? Or are you just running because everyone else is running?"
The author is layering an internal interrogation right over the external chaos. And we can break these three questions down into this escalating psychological audit.
Let's do that. So the first question is, are you really happy?
Right, which establishes the baseline emotional state. And the operative word there is really.
Really happy. Yeah, it addresses the performative layer of our lives.
Yeah.
Because the sociologist Irving Goffman, he wrote about this, the presentation of self in everyday life.
Yes, Goffman is perfect here.
Like how we are all essentially actors on a stage. We get incredibly skilled at performing happiness for the herd, you know?
We definitely do.
We send the exclamation points in the Slack channel. We post the curated vacation photos. We project all this competence. But this question cuts right through that performance to ask about the raw, unedited experience of being you.
And then moving to the second question, is this truly what you want? This shifts the focus from your emotions to your volition.
Your willpower, basically.
Yeah, it interrogates the architecture of your life.
Yeah.
It asks, are the obligations you're currently stressing over driven by intrinsic motivation, meaning things that genuinely fulfill you, or extrinsic motivation?
Meaning things you do just for external rewards or to avoid punishment.
Exactly.
And I feel like most of the time, the things making us miserable are extrinsic. We're essentially wearing a heavy coat that belongs to someone else, and we're just frantically convincing ourselves that we like the fit.
That's a great analogy. And then the third question just brings the hammer down on that whole facade.
Or are you just running because everyone else is running?
Right. That is the direct confrontation with Girard's mimetic desire. It forces you to consider the terrifying possibility that your exhaustion actually lacks meaning.
Oh, that is terrifying.
It really is. That the suffering you're enduring isn't this noble sacrifice for a deeply held core value, but it's really merely a side effect of unoriginal conformity.
Wow. And the tragedy embedded in this part of the text is the nature of the entity that's asking these questions, because the author specifically calls it a quiet voice.
Yes, the quiet voice.
It reminds me of the cocktail party effect in audiology.
Oh, sure.
Like when you're in a loud room, your brain tries to filter out the background chatter so you can focus on a single important target signal, like the person who's actually talking to you.
Right, you tune into their voice.
But if the background noise of the party gets too chaotic, that target signal just gets completely overwhelmed. You can see the person's lips moving, but you can't hear a word they're saying. And our internal voice is that target signal, but it's operating at a whisper.
And there's a neurological reason why it's quiet, actually. Because the brain prioritizes immediate, high-stakes external stimuli.
The threats.
Exactly. The amygdala is constantly scanning for immediate threats. A missed deadline, an angry client, a social faux pas. Those trigger very loud, immediate alarms in the brain.
So they get priority.
Yes. But existential misalignment, like the fact that your career doesn't deeply fulfill you, that is a slow, abstract threat. The brain doesn't attach an immediate dopamine or adrenaline spike to it, so it registers as quiet. It just waits.
I hear that, but I have to ask, let's deal with the reality of living in this society.
Sure.
I might hear that quiet voice, but like, I have a mortgage. I have dependents. I have a boss who expects immediate replies.
Right, the real world.
Right. If I pull over and stop chasing deadlines just to have an existential chat with myself about whether I'm running with the herd, I don't achieve self-actualization. I just get fired, you know?
Yeah, you lose your job.
So doesn't acknowledging this quiet voice require a level of privilege that most people just literally can't afford?
That is the central tension of modern wellness, honestly. Because the assumption is that self-inquiry demands a total abdication of responsibility. Like you have to quit your job and move to the woods.
Exactly.
But we have to look at the phrasing in the next section of the text because the author anticipates this exact panic. The transition here is crucial.
Okay, what does it say?
The text doesn't tell you to quit your job or abandon your mortgage. It introduces this powerful concept of cognitive diffusion.
Cognitive diffusion. Okay, break that down.
So in therapies like acceptance and commitment therapy, cognitive diffusion is a technique used to separate a person from their immediate, overwhelming thoughts.
To give them some distance.
Exactly. When you are panicked about keeping up, your core thought is, I must figure everything out right now or I will fail.
Yes, that is the exact thought.
But the author introduces a specific diffusing word to break that loop. The text says, maybe you don't need to have everything figured out today.
Maybe. Just that one word.
Maybe. It completely lowers the stakes.
It creates, like, psychological flexibility. It doesn't deny the existence of your responsibilities, but it challenges that manufactured urgency surrounding them.
That's exactly it. The anxiety-driving burnout is the false belief that every single variable in your life must be solved simultaneously in this exact 24-hour period.
It's a total lack of triage.
Yes.
The Eisenhower matrix is actually a great framework for this.
Oh, I love the Eisenhower matrix.
Right, because it teaches us to divide our tasks based on what is urgent and what is important. But when we are caught in all that noise we were just talking about, everything feels both urgent and important.
It all feels like a fire.
Exactly. We lose the ability to differentiate between a truly critical deadline and like a minor email that could easily wait 3 days. So telling yourself, maybe I don't need it all figured out today, allows you to sort the matrix again. It's strategic deceleration.
But here's the catch. Strategic deceleration requires a physiological shift before it can become a cognitive reality.
Meaning your body has to slow down first.
Yes. You cannot just think your way out of a sympathetic stress response. When your nervous system is flooded with stress hormones, telling your brain to calm down it's like shouting at a house fire to put itself out.
It doesn't work.
No. The author prescribes physical interventions to shift the biology first. The text suggests maybe what you need is a quiet morning, a slow walk, a deep breath, and a little honesty with yourself.
A quiet morning, a slow walk, a deep breath. These are entirely somatic practices.
They are, and they specifically target the vagus nerve.
Ah, the vagus nerve.
Yeah, which is the superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system that's the rest and digest counterpart to our fight or flight response.
Okay.
And the fascinating thing about the vagus nerve is that roughly 80% of its nerve fibers are afferent.
Afferent, meaning what exactly?
Meaning they carry information from the body up to the brain, not the other way around.
Oh, wow. So the body is actively telling the brain what state it should be in.
Yes. When you take a slow, deliberate walk, you are regulating your bilateral movement. When you take a deep diaphragmatic breath, the physical expansion of your diaphragm actually puts pressure on the vagus nerve.
That is wild.
And that pressure sends a massive electrical signal straight up to the brainstem, explicitly instructing your heart rate to slow down and your blood pressure to drop.
So you are basically manually overwriting the panic button. You're sending a biological memo to your brain that says, hey, we are not currently being chased by a predator. We are safe.
You're hacking your own biology. And only when that biological safety is established can we achieve the final item on the author's list, which is a little honesty with yourself.
Because honesty requires higher brain function.
Exactly. Honesty is a high-order cognitive function. It requires the prefrontal cortex to be fully engaged.
Right.
But when we are panicked, the amygdala essentially hijacks the brain, and it actually reduces blood flow to the prefrontal cortex.
So you literally do not have the neurological capacity to be deeply honest with yourself when you are rushing.
You don't. The physical acts of slowing down downregulate the amygdala, which then restores function to the prefrontal cortex.
So the physical slowness builds the container for the mental honesty.
Exactly.
And once that container is built, the text moves us into this incredible 4-part emotional audit. The author writes, when you slow down, you begin to notice what your heart has been trying to tell you. You realize what makes you tired, what makes you peaceful, who brings light into your life, and what you finally need to let go of.
The sequence of these 4 revelations is so heavily structured.
It really is.
It moves systematically from identifying deficits to establishing baselines to auditing our external environments and finally to executing a behavioral change. So we have to examine the first realization first. What makes you tired?
And I find it so fascinating that the text starts with what makes us tired before getting to the peace and the light. Why start with the negative?
Because you cannot heal a wound until you locate the source of the bleeding.
Ah, that makes sense.
It demands an investigation into our allostatic load.
Allostatic load?
Yeah, we often think of tiredness as just, a lack of sleep. But allostatic load refers to the cumulative wear and tear on the body and brain from chronic stress.
It's like a weathering effect.
Exactly. When we are caught in all that noise, we experience this generalized ambient fatigue. We just feel heavy all the time. But by slowing down, the dust settles, and we can actually isolate the specific variables contributing to that load.
So you might realize that your core job duties aren't actually what exhausts you. What makes you tired is like the specific performative culture of your office.
Yes, or maybe it's a toxic friendship that requires constant emotional management.
Or even the mimetic desire we discussed earlier, like the exhausting effort of trying to want something you don't actually care about just to keep up.
Exactly. Which paves the way for the second realization, which is what makes you peaceful. Because if the first step is identifying the pathogens, the second is identifying the antibodies.
And peaceful is a really deliberate word choice here, isn't it?
It is incredibly deliberate. Modern culture heavily promotes high arousal, positive states,
Like excitement, thrill, passion, euphoria.
Exactly. Those states are heavily marketed to us. But peace is a low arousal, positive state. It is parasympathetic dominance.
So the audit is asking you to identify the specific context. Maybe it's a quiet room or a certain hobby or just a particular time of day where your vigilance actually drops, where you do not have to perform for anyone.
Right. It's the direct contrast to the loudness from the beginning of the text.
Okay, so once you map your internal landscape, what drains you and what grounds you, the text shifts outward to the social network. The third realization is who brings light into your life.
And this brings us to the social regulation of the nervous system. According to polyvagal theory, which was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, mammals possess a social engagement system.
We're wired for connection.
We are biologically wired to co-regulate with others. So when we are around safe, supportive people, our nervous systems literally sync up and calm down.
But the opposite is true too, right? We can co-dysregulate.
Oh, absolutely.
Like when we are around highly anxious, demanding, or mimetic people, their stress literally becomes our stress.
Yes, it transfers.
And the metaphor of light is just profound here. Because light creates visibility, it provides warmth, it catalyzes growth. When the internal noise subsides, the contrast between the people who drain your battery and the people who recharge it becomes impossible to ignore.
And this social audit really sets the stage for the climax of the passage. You have mapped the exhaustion, the peace, and the relationships. The fourth realization is the culmination of all this data, and what you finally need to let go of.
Because this is the moment the text actually demands action.
Yes, it demands a choice.
Like, awareness is useless if it isn't followed by behavioral change. In fact, I'd say gaining all this profound awareness without acting on it just breeds deep cynicism. You know exactly what is hurting you, but you refuse to stop touching the hot stove.
But the refusal to let go is deeply rooted in our cognitive biases, specifically loss aversion and the sunk cost fallacy.
Break those down for us.
So, psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky demonstrated that human beings feel the pain of losing something twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining something of equal value.
Wow, twice as intensely. Even if the thing we are losing is actively harming us.
Especially then. Because our identities become structurally reliant on our burdens. Think of a tensegrity structure. Those architectural models held together entirely by continuous tension.
Oh, yeah, where the wires are pulling against each other to keep it standing.
Exactly. If you cut one of those tension wires, the whole structure might collapse. We view our lives like that. The toxic job, the draining relationship, the copied desires, they are the tension wires holding our identity together.
So the idea of letting them go triggers this existential fear of structural collapse. We are terrified of the void that will be left behind if we cut the wire.
And that's why the word finally, in that sentence, is doing so much heavy lifting.
What you finally need to let go of.
Yes. It acknowledges that this isn't a new revelation. That quiet voice has been whispering this exact directive for months, maybe years.
So the slow walk and the deep breath didn't create the realization.
No, they just removed the noise that allowed you to successfully ignore it for so long.
And letting go requires immense psychological safety, which is why the author mandates the physical grounding and the identification of peace and supportive relationships before demanding the release.
You have to build the safety net before you drop the burden.
Which takes us right to the philosophical conclusion of the text. Because letting go fundamentally alters our trajectory. The author ends by radically redefining the entire concept of a pause. The final lines read, "So today, pause for a moment, not because you are lost, but because sometimes slowing down is how you find your way back to yourself."
This is an active rebellion against the kinetic bias of modern capitalism.
The kinetic bias, I like that term.
Because we operate in a hustle culture that absolutely fetishizes momentum. The assumption is that velocity equals value. If you are moving, climbing, grinding, acquiring, you are succeeding.
And consequently, stillness is stigmatized as failure. If you stop, society just assumes you have given up, or that you are utterly lost.
But we confuse velocity with vector.
Okay, expand on there.
Velocity is just speed. Vector is speed with a specific direction.
Yeah.
You can have incredibly high velocity on a treadmill, but your vector is 0.
You aren't going anywhere.
Exactly. But society applauds the sweat, regardless of the destination.
And the author dismantles that stigma entirely. They state explicitly, not because you are lost. Pausing is not a symptom of special or existential confusion. It is the precise mechanism required for orientation.
It really is.
Think about the telemetry of a GPS system, right? If you are driving through a dense urban environment with huge, tall buildings, or maybe you're out in a super remote area, the GPS on your phone will sometimes lose its connection to the satellites.
Oh yeah, all the time.
And the blue dot representing you starts jumping erratically across the map. It places you 3 streets over, then you're suddenly in a river, then you're facing backward.
The signal-to-noise ratio has degraded.
Exactly. And what happens if you just push the gas pedal harder? Like if you keep driving at high speed while the GPS is jumping like that?
You will confidently drive miles in the wrong direction.
Right. The velocity is actively hurting you. When the navigation system is confused, the absolute best logistical move is to pull the car over and put it in park.
You must become stationary.
By stopping, you remove the kinetic variables. You give the device the temporal and spatial stability it needs to communicate with the satellites, clear the interference, and finally lock onto its true coordinates.
The pause is the technology of recalibration.
The technology of recalibration, that is brilliant.
When we are caught in that reactive cycle, chasing the deadlines and keeping up with the herd, our internal telemetry is scrambling. We are making massive life decisions based on faulty jumping signals.
So slowing down isn't quitting the journey. It is literally the prerequisite for calculating the correct route.
And the route the author points us toward is just profound. Slowing down is how you find your way back to yourself. The spatial metaphor there implies so much about human nature.
How so?
It relies on an almost phenomenological understanding of the self. So in existential philosophy, thinkers like Heidegger, they explore this concept of Dasein, or being in the world.
Okay.
The idea is that we are thrown into a world of external demands and what he calls the they, basically the herd mentality.
The mimetic crowd.
Yes. And because of that, we become alienated from our authentic mode of being.
So the text implies that your authentic self isn't a destination you have to conquer. It's not like a version of you that requires an upgraded resume or a new morning routine or a higher salary to unlock.
Not at all. The self is an origin point. It is a home. The phrasing, back to yourself, suggests that your core identity is actually fully intact.
You haven't destroyed it.
You haven't destroyed it. You haven't lost it permanently. You have simply wandered away from it, drawn out into the frantic streets by all that noise and the mimetic desires of the crowd.
So to pause is simply to turn around and walk back through the front door.
It is the ultimate reclamation of autonomy. You are rejecting the external pacing, and you are reestablishing your own internal rhythm.
Let's pull all of these threads together because the architecture of this short text is, honestly, it's genuinely breathtaking.
It really is. It
Yeah.
moves seamlessly from sociology to neuroscience, and finally to existential philosophy.
Right. We began by examining the modern environment, this digital and cognitive loudness that forces us into a sympathetic stress response. We're trapped in this endless loop of waking up, checking, chasing, and answering.
We just surrender our mornings to the agenda of the inbox and the algorithm.
And we unpacked the mimetic trap, that evolutionary instinct to run simply because the herd is running. Terrified of being left behind, even if the herd is literally running in circles.
But beneath that deafening noise, we identified the target signal. The quiet voice, the internal auditor, asking us to strip away all those performative layers. Asking, are you actually experiencing joy? Are your goals intrinsically motivated, or are they just borrowed from the people you are trying to keep up with?
And we confronted the reality that the brain actively suppresses this quiet voice because it doesn't register existential misalignment as an immediate physical threat.
Right. And to hear it, we had to introduce cognitive diffusion, the word maybe.
Lowering the stakes, implementing that strategic deceleration so we can actually triage our lives, we learn that we can't just think our way into calmness.
No, we have to leverage the vagus nerve through physical grounding, the quiet morning, the slow walk, the diaphragmatic breath.
Using those afferent nerve signals to command the brain to stand down. Re-engaging the prefrontal cortex so we can achieve the prerequisite safety for absolute honesty.
Which then unlock the four realizations, analyzing our allostatic load to see what makes us tired, locating the environments of parasympathetic dominance that actually bring us peace,
Auditing our social regulation to find the people who bring us light. And finally, battling our own loss aversion to cut the tension wires of the things we need to let go of.
culminating in that radical reframing of stillness, rejecting the kinetic bias of society, understanding that the pause is not a failure of momentum, but the vital stationary moment required for the internal GPS to lock onto its true coordinates.
You know, the knowledge in this deep dive is not designed to make you feel guilty for participating in the modern world. I mean, you have a job, you have responsibilities. You will inevitably get caught in the noise again.
Of course you will.
But the objective here is to install a conceptual reset button in your mind.
The text provides a reproducible protocol. When the mimetic panic rises, when you feel that shallow breathing of the chase begin, you now have the diagnostic tools to intervene.
You can actively choose to initiate the diffusion. You can step off the treadmill, take the slow walk, engage the deep breath, and just let the dust settle.
You really can.
Well, thank you for spending this time with us on the deep dive. Untacking the profound mechanics hidden inside these few lines has been an incredible journey.
It's been great.
But as we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final thought, just an idea to carry with you as you transition back into the demands of your day. We talked about the tensegrity structure earlier, the way we build our identities around the burdens we carry. We talked about identifying that specific sandbag, that toxic habit or copied desire that you finally need to let go of. And the text promises that dropping this weight allows you to find your way back to yourself.
Right.
But consider the physics of that release. When you finally cut the wire, the structure of your life is going to change. That void will be there. So ask yourself this. Once you find the courage to let go of the thing that has been draining you, who is the person left standing in that newly quiet space, when you strip away the exhaustion, the performance, and the frantic running, what does the unburdened, unrushed version of you actually look like? Take a breath, slow down, and see who is waiting for you at home.